Welcome aboard the night flight. I am your captain, Hatman. Welcome you all aboard, as I say. Hope you're all feeling good. Let me know if you can hear me loud and clear in the live chat. In fact, I think I might need to increase the volume on this MacBook mic a little, so I don't have to shout so much. Up in the decibels slightly here. There we go. Should be a bit more audible. Yes, I know about the Usyk news. Horribly disappointing. But we were forewarned that that fight may well happen. It was in discussions for a while. Big up Dominica, Anthony YouTube, Phoenix, Yems, WPW, KD versus the world, David Fisher. Yes, big up Dreadlocks. How you mean? Usyk's next fight, yeah, he's taking on the kickboxer. It's, again, not a massive surprise because this was rumored for a long time. I did a video about it. The guy's called Rico Van Hoven. Apparently he's a kickboxing legend, but he's not a boxing legend. And bizarrely, they're putting this fight on in Egypt next to the pyramid, the Great Pyramid at Giza. Now, if you were going to put on a boxing fight at such a historic site, then surely you would want it to be a historic fight. Surely you'd want it to be a great fight. Alexander Usyk versus this Rico guy is obviously not a great fight. It's a shocker. And here's the thing. Let me get the poster up on the screen. Now, obviously, things can change. But as it stands right now, if you guys notice something about the poster here, it's got the WBC's logo on it, and it says for the WBC World Heavyweight Championship. That would seem as though the WBA and the IBF are not willing to sanction it. As they shouldn't. This guy has had one professional boxing match. I think it was over 10 years ago, Rico. And somehow the WBC have put this guy in their top 15 or top 10. I mean, what a joke of an organization. How could you rank someone who hasn't fought in a professional fight, boxing match, for over 10 years? And even when he did have that fight, it wasn't at any kind of level. The WBC just keep outdoing themselves in terms of how ridiculous they're willing to be. Shocking stuff. And really terribly, terribly disappointing from Usyk after all the good work, after all the great things he's done in his sport. Instead of fighting a legit contender, he picks this guy. I mean, it is bizarre. Now, I want to big up James because he did suggest something which I guess is a possibility, although not every fighter in the top 15 with the WBC, WBA, and IBF is a Frank Warren fighter. But he floated the possibility that Frank Warren's actually freezing Usyk out right now, as in not putting any of his guys in with him because he doesn't think they can beat him. He's basically waiting him out to see if the sanctioning bodies strip him, then he can have his guys fight for the vacant belts. I've got no idea whether that's the case, but it's an interesting idea that James put out there, James Clifford. So big up, James Clifford. He always comes with thought-provoking comments. And obviously that would somewhat exonerate Usyk if it was the case, but not quite because, again, there are plenty, actually, of heavyweights in the top 10, top 15 of those three sanctioned bodies for which Usyk holds a belt for that are not Frank Warren fighters. And I'm sure any of them would jump at the chance, even at short notice, to fight Usyk. But instead, he's taken on a guy who's a kickboxer, hasn't had a pro boxing match in something like over 10 years. It's shocking. I don't like starting these night flights on a downer, But there you go. That's what people were commenting about in the live chat. So might as well address it right away. We got Activistic Intellect. Big FRG, Spinal Tyson. I love that name. Alexander, big up. Ishmael. Kayvon Green. What's up? What's up? Got Amon in the house. Eldon Joe, big up. In fact, yeah, I didn't notice that. Oh my God. Wait. Undefeated icons on the part. I didn't notice that part. Yeah. Undefeated icons. But Rico's only undefeated because they only had one fight in a profession in boxing. Had loads of kickboxing fights, but only one boxing match. That's why undefeated icons. Rico is 1-0 in professional boxing. You know, this is worse than what Luke Partridge did. Yeah, it's worse. Because at least when Luke Partridge fought Ngannou, it wasn't for a world title. It was it wasn't unsanctioned, but it wasn't sanctioned by any of the major sanctioning bodies, right? It wasn't a world title fight. This, they've actually managed to get it for a world title fight and trust the WBC to do some big. In fact, it was the WBC whose belt Partridge held when he fought Ngannou. So I'm surprised the WBC didn't sanction that bout. Somehow they're sanctioning this one. So trust the WBC to pull some BS like this. And as I say, horribly disappointing that Usyk would soil his resume with a fight like this and call it a world championship. Shocking stuff. 29th of May. Again, historic location, legendary location. It's a shame there isn't a legendary fight topping the bill for such a location. Very, very unfortunate. Shout out to JR. Shout out to Triple R. Casa. Big up. Big up Typhon. Have any of you guys seen the trailer? I think there's been a couple of trailers. Just switching topics here. Have any of you guys seen the trailer for Stephen King's upcoming movie, Disclosure Day? Any of you guys seen that? What do you think of the trailer? They're fighting in Cairo, Egypt, outside the Great Pyramid at Giza. So, you know, Turkey likes to do these historic location fights like Times Square. There was talk about doing a fight on Alcatraz. So it's long been Turkey's vision to have fights at historic locations. Perhaps he'll do one at the Eiffel Tower, the Roman Colosseum. That may well be to come. You know, don't be surprised if there's a Roman Colosseum one, an Eiffel Tower one, etc., etc. This is the Pyramid of Giza one. But for such a historic location, you'd want a historic fight. Usyk versus Rico is a horrible mismatch. It's like a waste of the location, you know, for such a poor fight. Shout out to Adam Fawkes for the super chat. He says, did your boss at the luxury retail job ever get onto you and the South African guy dragging the deliveries out? Well, I worked security, and so we were subcontractors, right? We weren't employed directly by the luxury retail outlet. We were, our company was employed to provide security. And so the supervisor was this Ghanaian guy, and he was a very funny guy, but he wasn't the most, how can I put it? He didn't run his, he wasn't the most confrontational or strict guy, even though he was a massive, massive dude, right? But he had kind of a gentle disposition, so he didn't really like. he wasn't maybe cut out to be a supervisor. I don't know, but anyway, yeah, we would take turns going places to deliver goods from one store to another, because if the Sloane Street store didn't have certain stock, we were sent, the security was sent to go deliver it to the Bond Street store. Yeah. And obviously, me and the South African guy would absolutely take the biscuit, crazy detours, eating hot dogs. He took it to the next level. The South African guy, it was a white South African guy from Durban, and he took it to the next level because he would like send me picture messages, yeah. Because I sent him a picture message of me eating a hot dog. I'm supposed to be going to deliver this item to the Bond Street store, and there's me sending him a picture eating a hot dog, and he's stuck in the store. Do you know what I mean? Doing the security, and he was like, "You bastard!" So after that one, when he got sent on a delivery, he sent me a picture, I swear down. He was sitting in a pub with a pint, having steak and chips. Taking a piss. Oh my day. He tried to outdo me. Unbelievable. But yeah, nah, we never really got in trouble because what are you going to do? You know, you can blame it on traffic, stuff like that. Sometimes they would send a cab for us. In fact, I think that was as a result of us taking the biscuit, because the tube station wasn't too far. But depending on whether you had a bus pass or a travel card, you could say, oh, well, I have to take the bus, I don't have a travel card. But big up Adam Fawkes for the super chat. Yeah, we had some banter and fun times doing the luxury retail security. Anthony says, big up Hatman, the Connor Hen video you posted earlier had me in stitches. So Chris says, big up Hatman, do you think this is Usyk closing the curtain on his career? I hope so. Because when you're resorting to fighting people like this and passing it off as a heavyweight title fight, you better be retiring next. You better be retiring next. Because this is a joke fight. But yeah, I'm asking anyone out there, have you seen the trailer for the new Spielberg movie, Disclosure Day? And if you have, what do you think of it? I think the movie's got Emily Blunt in it. Who else is in Disclosure Day? Big up Chili Beef. My team working perfect. That's right. Let me have a look now. Disclosure Day. Who's starring? It's definitely got Emily Blunt in there. Colin Firth is in it. And a bag of other people whose names I don't recognize, but whose faces I probably would. Obviously, I know Colin Firth. Who else is in there? I don't think I know these others, actually. Coleman Domingo? I don't know him. I only really know Emily Blunt and Colin Firth then. Okay. Says that dude that was in Blade Runner. Ian Ward says, just watched an interview with Curtis Woodhouse. He knows what it is, and he said it's very bad. Sounds like something has come out or happened and may be in trouble. Yeah, I saw that Curtis Woodhouse thing, but I suspect it's something in relation to the Steen files or something similar to that, like some prominent member of the boxing industry has been implicated in the Steen files. That's what I suspect it is, but at this stage, would that really be shocking? There are so many damn people in those files alleged to have done all sorts of horrible stuff. It's like the list is endless at this stage. What could shock people? What? Because a member of the boxing establishment is in it? Like, couldn't really shock us at this point, could it? Matthew Wilson says, call me mad, but I think Regis has a decent chance of beating Conor Henn. He is already in the UK, doesn't have to make weight, and is all round the better boxer. I just think he's too small, too old, too fragile, and he never had a great defense. So I don't think so. Big up Charles B in the chat. I think that Clommer Henn is going to wipe out Regis Prograis, personally. He's going to wipe him out. The whole thing has been set up for him to wipe him out. Now, with Regis being in the UK already, if he's going to do his whole camp in the UK, I mean, theoretically that could be a good idea. But there's so much skullduggery in boxing. If you're doing your camp in Clommer Henn's home country, you might get sabotaged. Do you know what I mean? They might do all sorts of dirty stuff to try to sabotage your camp. Seriously, boxing is such a dirty business. I think Prograis is going to get demolished. I hope they're paying him well. We know they're paying Clommer Henn well. Crazy well. 15 mil for that. Unbelievable. I mean, nice work if you can get it. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, for somebody to be in the black book, it doesn't really mean much. For somebody to be in the files doesn't really mean much unless they've been accused of something serious. Because there are people in the files who haven't been accused of anything bad. In fact, the opposite. They've been accused of, like, being a thorn in the side of the establishment and stuff like that. There's a few people in there for that reason. We got Martin Colton. Oh my God. Is that what Regis said in the interview? Charles B says, yeah, it'll be a 3-round job. So Ishmael says, Prograis said he asked for 147 and Ben said no. Oh my God. This guy's got more front than Brighton. Unbelievable. So he drained Eubank Jr. twice. with a rehydration clause. Remember, he tried to fight him at a catch weight originally. After the 2 adverse findings, right? Eubank was like, "No, we ain't doing that." But he still managed to put the rehydration clause in there twice. Celebrated after the second fight like he'd won undisputed. That was embarrassing. Gets offered a title shot for the IBF at 147. Says, "No, thank you, Lewis Crocker. I won't take that fight because I don't want to do the rehydration clause." I mean, could you be any more of a hypocrite? It's just unreal, man. It is unreal. Like I said in a video I uploaded about Clomahen, it's as if he's going out of his way to be as diabolical as possible. It's as if it's deliberate. It's as if he's leaning in to the heel role. This guy wants every advantage imaginable. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. D-Man says, "Hatman, do you think a borderless Africa would work?" Not right now, no. Not right now. We got Anthony says, "What's more diabolical, Clomahen or the WBC?" Oh, that's a toughie. That is a toughie. I'm going to go with the WBC. Because with them, since they're dealing with so many different fighters and they're making so many decisions, they can do far more bad stuff on a regular basis than Clomahen. Because he's only one guy. But he's going to give them a run for their money, I'll tell you that. He's too much, man. Big up Anthony. Big up Gaz. He says, "Just clocked Uncharted 4 on PS5. Great game, Hatman." Yeah, I played that when it came out. Uncharted 4. I personally prefer Uncharted 2. Uncharted 4, obviously, because of the time when it came out, it was far more graphically and technically impressive than Uncharted 2. But I always preferred the characters in Uncharted 2, the story in it, so on and so forth. But I guess by today's standards, Uncharted 2 is pretty dated. But that was the most impressive game I ever played at the time when I first played it. Like, I've never been so impressed by a game as Uncharted 2. In today's context, it might not be as impressive to new players because other games have copied what it did, and you know what I mean? But at the time when it came out, Uncharted 2 just blew me away. Totally blew me away. It was the most cinematic, crazy, high-octane video game, which was like playing a movie, but not like those video games where you have limited control over your character, those type of movie games. Nah, fully interactive, but like a movie. Like an action movie, like an action adventure, mystery, occult, supernatural. It had all sorts of elements in it, with twists in the plot and all sorts. Yeah, loved it. But Uncharted 4, great game as well. Great game, but not quite as good in my view as far as the story and all that kind of stuff, and even the set pieces, as Uncharted 2. But like I say, Uncharted 4, much bigger game, kind of sandbox levels and whatnot. Uncharted 4, but Uncharted 2, it had a woman as the creative director called Amy Hennig, and she was way better at creating stories, in my opinion, than Druckmann and the other guy who did Uncharted 4. They also did the Last of Us games. They were the creative directors for that, and they did the stories for that. Somehow Amy Hennig left Naughty Dog. I don't know what happened there, but she was very, very good when it came to stories and characters and whatnot. She was one of the GOATs. Big up Gaz. Big up Luca. He says, this guy needs to retire and the WBC needs to go. When you see stuff like that happening, it's... But then again, I was going to say it helps Zuffa, but then Zuffa are letting Clomahen fight Regis Prograis and paying him 15 mil. So it's a weird situation right now, isn't it? There you go. Ishmael says Neil Cuckman ruined The Last of Us 2. I didn't play The Last of Us 2. I liked the first game, but when I saw what they'd done to the second game, I was like, count me out. Drop me out, Brian. I don't want no parts of that. Mr. Lucas says, if Turkey cared about boxing, he'd never put this on. I do want to say something. I do want to say something about Frank Warren, though, right? Because a lot of people are siding with Warren in this beef. But if you actually read the details of what Warren is trying to sue over, he's not trying to sue on moral grounds because he thinks that with the UFC model, fighters are going to be exploited. Quite the opposite. Right? If you read what he's suing over, he wanted in. Yeah, he wanted in. So it's not like Warren is Mr. Morality. No. He wanted in. And because he ain't getting in, now he's suing for $1 billion. So it's not like he had any kind of moral objection to what they were doing. He's just vexed that he ain't a part of it. Yeah, we spoke about the Usyk thing earlier on. It's very disappointing. I'm almost so traumatized by it that I don't want to talk about it for the rest of the stream again. Because, you know, Usyk's been such an exemplary champion for all these years. To sink this low, I mean, this is Partridge level low. This is so sad. We've spoken about it earlier on in the stream. Let's not even go there again. If you rewind right to the beginning of the stream, you'll hear me talk about it and you'll see I put the poster up on the screen and all that, but it's so depressing. Indeed, Ocean Blue. Loss of earnings, not lack of principle. It's like the saying from The Dark Knight. I modified it a bit for boxing. You either retire a hero or fight on long enough to see yourself become a partridge. Yeah. You retire a hero or fight on long enough to see yourself become a partridge. What did you think of the trailer, Charles B? Interesting. Okay. It's interesting times, isn't it? With all this UAP stuff and all of a sudden, out of the blue, the mainstream media that laughed at UFOs for years, now they're taking it seriously. Isn't it interesting? And do you guys remember during 2020 and also 2021, the mainstream media were running these stories about these giant silver monoliths appearing at random places all around the world. And they were reporting it very seriously. What in the world was all that about? That needs to be reinvestigated and looked into. What a weird. I mean, it was like the monoliths out of 2001 Space Odyssey, but they were appearing all over the world. And the mainstream media were reporting them, not like pranks, but like a serious story. Very, very weird. Atavis the Intellect says, Hatman, do you reckon that Bricktop in Snatch was actually based off of Warren? I suspect it was. Partly based on Warren, yes. Because Warren started off in unlicensed boxing with his cousin Lenny McLean. So I think it was partly based on Warren. I'm not saying completely, obviously, but yeah, partly inspired by Warren. I do think so. And they might have, Guy Ritchie might have actually admitted that at some stage. Don't quote me on that, but he might have admitted that it was partly inspired by Warren. Spinal Tyson says Operation Bluebeam. Charles B said, I noticed that film had crop circles in it. Yeah, I'll be interested to watch that Spielberg movie. The last time he made an alien movie was what? His most famous alien movie, obviously, was Close Encounters. That was a great movie. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Now we're cooking on gas. Abyss says, might not be entirely Usyk's fault. He could have a contract with Turkey who won't allow him to fight any of his mandatories, which are Queensberry fighters. That's an interesting hypothesis. That's interesting. But again, not everybody in the top 15 of the WBA, IBF, and WBC is a Frank Warren fighter. So even if that was the case, he could still fight someone else, not in Frank Warren's stable. Spinal Tyson says Spielberg is a pre-programmer. Okay. Predictive programming, for anyone who doesn't know what he's referring to there. WPW says, but his last fight was a Frank fighter in Triple D. Yeah, but that was seemingly before Warren and Turkey fell out. They seem to have fallen out since then. And that fight was signed. At the time that fight was signed, they were still apparently on relatively good terms. But no longer. We got Chili Beef. He says, Hatman, do you think Eddie has a trump card with Turkey since he has darts and boxing? Eddie's playing a very different game, isn't he, than Warren? He's staying close to Turkey. He's not trying to fall out with him. And Turkey is invested, as I understand it, in the darts and the other stuff. It isn't just the boxing. And Eddie is a more pragmatic person than Warren. Warren is a very fiery character. Very prideful, very fiery. And I wonder what the origin of him falling out with Turkey is. Because I don't think, and look, I have no inside knowledge whatsoever, so I'm purely speculating. I suspect that something happened to make those two fall out. And what was then alleged, Warren saying that he was not included in a particular deal. If that's true, I reckon it happened after they'd fallen out, as a result of them falling out, maybe. You understand? So I think they've fallen out over something else, and all of this is as a result of it. Just my suspicion. I'm not an insider. I've got no idea whether any of that speculation is true. Big up Chili Beef. But yeah, Eddie Hearn is being very pragmatic at the moment. But Eddie might reach a point where he has to pick a side, because Warren might want him to form a united front and say, look, if we work together, we can still make the UK a gold mine as far as boxing. Because Warren's, at the moment, still got a lot of the heavyweight division. So he might give Hearn an ultimatum. Pick a side, him or me. Shout out to Glum Coyote. He says, oh yeah, I saw you make that same comment on in the comment section. Whatever that word is pronounced again. Quixotic actually comes from Don Quixotique. So it's a French word then. It certainly doesn't look like a normal English word. And he says, Opataya is indeed battering windmills. Is that a French word? Shout out to Glum Coyote. I also saw your comments regarding Tony Yoka going up against Lawrence Okolie. I think it's an interesting fight. There's a lot of people trashing that fight, but I think it could be quite interesting. When's the last time that Lawrence Okolie hugged? Well, actually, the Tete fight was pretty horrible, wasn't it? But Tete's kind of a mauler. Whereas Yoka is going to give you time and space. And when somebody gives Okolie time and space, he doesn't do all that holding. So if this is going to be a long-range boxing match, I reckon it might actually be quite interesting. Shout out to Glum Coyote for the super chat. But yeah, I don't think Opataya is the sharpest knife in the drawer. Shout out to Charlene. What do you guys think of the Lawrence Okolie, Tony Yoka fight? Anyone interested? I'm guessing not too many. Oh yeah, Ocean Blue. Yeah, that's right. Johnny Nelson did say to Boxing King Media that he suspected a rift between Bricktop and Turkey. Yeah, he was one of the earliest people to say that. Yeah. And by the way, there's strong rumors in the industry that Zuffa Boxing are about to do a deal with Sky Sports in the UK, which will be huge. Now, I've got a lot to say about that because, well, before I talk about Zuffa Boxing, Sky Sports in the UK, will Johnny Nelson be kept on as a pundit for Sky? Because, he must be a little anxious at this stage, especially after Ben Shalom was given his marching orders by Sky, right? Sky no longer doing boxing shows. What's Johnny Nelson going to do? He's got his YouTube channel now, but how much money is that making? Will he be included in the broadcast team if Zuffa Boxing do this deal with Sky? I have to imagine that Zuffa Boxing are going to hand-pick the broadcast team. I don't think it's just going to be a case of they get whoever Sky give them. I reckon they're going to hand-pick them. And as far as Galaxy Edit says, why does the poster say only for the... Because presumably the other sanctioning bodies won't sanction Usyk versus the kickboxer because it's diabolical. The guy had one professional boxing match over a decade ago. How could you possibly rank him? You have to rank him in order to sanction the fight. With the WBC being as pathetic as they are, they've decided to rank a guy who hasn't had a pro boxing match for over 10 years. And even then it was a low-level fight, so that's why. Do I think Eddie will accept all the micro humiliations he has to go through? Maybe they're not even micro. Maybe they're macro humiliations. And yes, I think he'll accept them all. Eddie will swallow that pride, no problem. As long as there's a pound note in it for him. Big up E. Daniel. He says, I'm a short fighter and just started sparring. How do you avoid getting pounded after going rounds? Pause. You have to develop head movement. Also, you can't just walk in straight lines. And if you do walk in a straight line, make sure you're jabbing. You need to do a lot of shadow boxing, a lot of conditioning of your arms to throw punches at eye level. You know, when you're at your eye level, your shoulder needs to be close to your eye level, your chin down, eyes looking up and forward. But yeah, you need to move your head. And when you come in at an angle. So you can feint and move to the right or to the left and come in, at an angle. Practice doing that. Shadow boxing is so important, you know? Even just doing technical spars with training mates, where you're practicing those kind of foot movements to get in close. Jab to the body to blind the opponent, double jabs, triple jabs. Pressure fighting is a science, you know? And you have to work on all aspects of pressure fighting. The most simple form of pressure fighting is just to develop an extremely tight guard and just get used to getting walloped around. Walk in, hit him in the body. That's the most simple form of pressure fighting. But if you don't want to get walloped around and have a short career, then you have to develop the footwork and the head movement and the jabbing to get in close. And it takes a long time. You know, it takes dedication. It takes obsession to get good at that. You're a short fighter. Pressure fighting is a more difficult thing to learn, really, for most people, than being a tall guy that can stick behind the jab. But it is what it is. Those are the cards you've been dealt. So you got to do what you got to do. Shout out to Tommy Gov. Says, thoughts on Russell Brand? I think Russell Brand is a phony. I mean, this guy was the most Camden Market Marxist, Leninist, lefty, liberal individual you could possibly imagine for most of his life, well into his 40s. And then what? During 2020, 2021, he has an epiphany and becomes like an alt-right Christian conservative. No, that doesn't happen. That type of about turn in someone's personality, if that's going to happen, it happens when they're young, in their 20s or something. Early 30s at most. And he's not like some kind of sheltered individual. You know, if you were a sheltered person, maybe that could happen in your 40s. If you'd been really sheltered and hadn't been anywhere, hadn't mixed in different circles, But he's not a sheltered guy. He was like a Hollywood guy and a stand-up comedian and a television presenter and all sorts. He's been around the world and met all sorts of different people. He's had more than enough time in 40 plus years to figure out who he is. So I just don't buy it. I think his whole shtick right now is a put on. I think it's fake. And he's attaching himself to this movement because maybe he thinks it's prudent to do so. You know? I think, I mean, at the end of the day, he's an actor, and I think he's acting. That's it. He's an actor doing his job, which is acting. He just acts off stage as well as on stage. So I think he's a total fraud. We got Action Popcast. He says, loving these streams. Glad you're enjoying them. Glom Coyote says, well, I am keen on that fight. I have a feeling that Yoka has changed these past few years. I don't know how, and if he is an improved fighter, but he looks less downtrodden and more authoritative. Could it be anything to do with splitting up with his ex? I'm not sure if he was ever married to her. She's also a boxer from France. Did they have a tumultuous relationship? Is he happier now after getting over the split from her? Those things can affect people, you know? It can affect a fighter's performances. I mean, I think Wilder's been affected to some extent by the situation with his ex. WPW says Camden Market, you know, ain't he from Essex? Well, Camden Market's full of people from all over the place. They're drawn there. There's a certain type that are drawn to Camden Market and drawn to Camden in general. And he was fully in there with that crowd. Yeah, fake Christian. That's what I see him as. A fake Christian. Exactly that. Big up Glom Coyote. He says, Russell Brand is a shameless villain. Yes, I've discussed the Usyk fight. I'm quite depressed about it, to be honest. D-Man says, has anyone else noticed YouTube is a lot more glitchy? I suspect it's all this AI code. Yeah, I've noticed that, yeah. Like, for example, when I play a YouTube short, every single time now, it will skip to a different short. As soon as I start playing one, it will skip without playing it. Then I have to, you know, go backwards and try and play it again. It used to do that occasionally, but for the past couple of weeks, it's doing it every single time I click on a short, it will skip past it and go to the next one. Then I have to press the back button. People are asking about, yes, I've discussed the Usyk fight. I'm traumatized over here, folks. Can we not? If you want to hear me talk about the Usyk fight, please just rewind to earlier on in the stream, because I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed. But I did talk about the fight and I showed the poster and everything. But yeah, here's what I wanted to say with regards to Zuffa and this apparent deal, this rumored deal that they're going to do with Sky in the UK. Now, Zuffa Boxing are looking to only have 8 weight classes. They're looking to have all this generic Zuffa branding. The fighters are wearing Zuffa branded stuff and gloves, and some fighters that I've noticed in the Zuffa shows are still wearing other gloves. Rival, Grants, Everlast, and so on. But others are wearing Zuffa gloves. So I'm not sure how that all works. But one thing I can tell you is that because boxing gloves are very different in design to UFC mitts, it's much more difficult to get glove models that are going to be suitable for every fighter. They're not. So I think that's why you're seeing fighters in branded gloves, not Zuffa branded gloves, because hands are different, and a boxing glove is very different to an MMA mitt, which does have a more one-size-fits-all aspect to it. But this homogenized branding that Zuffa want to implement, I'm not sure how well that's going to go down on Sky Sports with UK boxing fans. I don't know. Because the UK obviously is the home, the birthplace of Queensberry rules boxing, the most modern incarnation of pugilism. So the country's obviously steeped in history. And British people kind of take pride in the fact that they're different from their cousins on the continent. So, for example, continental Europeans accepted the euro, right? They accepted the metric system. Recently, many of them have accepted digital ID. And these are all things that Brits have said, hell no. We don't want any of that. We don't care if the rest of Europe is doing it. We're not the rest of Europe. We're Britain. We're an island nation. And we're proud that we do things the way that we do them. So I'm not sure, and with that kind of mentality, I'm not sure how well the homogenized Zuffa boxing branding and all that kind of stuff will go down in Britain. What do you guys think? Because Brits also like the individuality that fighters bring to the table. The ring walks, the outfits, and all the theatrics. British boxing fans like that kind of stuff, the individuality. Whereas UFC, again, it's like a... God, why am I coughing? It's like I got dust in my throat. Yeah, the UFC is like a microcosmic version of a communist state where they kill individuality. Everything is uniform and homogenized. Ian Ward says, Hatman, are Cleto Reyes boxing gloves good? I need to take a sip of water. I feel like I got... You know that feeling when you feel like you got dust in your windpipe and it won't go away? It's like a tickle in your windpipe. Let me go get some water. Or else I'm going to be like Bob Fleming over here, coughing all the way through the stream. So give me a second and let me get a bottle of water. All right, Bob Fleming here. Gardner. Anyone know the reference? Bob Fleming here. Anyone remember Bob Fleming? I was doing my best Bob Fleming impression there. Shout out to Goozy. That's right. Far Show reference. Yes. Bob Fleming. Have my water. Much better. Charles B says it's like Thomas Sheridan coughing. Yeah, I heard Rampage Jackson talk about that actually. How there's no individuality allowed in UFC anymore. But yeah, what do you guys think? Do you think British boxing fans, if Zuffa do this deal with Sky, are gonna like the lack of individuality and the homogenized presentation of Zuffa? Also, what do you think British boxing fans will think of only 8 weight classes? Because I'm going to tell you that boxers in the UK are not going to like it at all, having only 8 weight classes. I don't see that working in Britain. Zuffa doing shows in the UK, only 8 weight, I just don't see it working. Big up Glum Coyote, he says, the uniformization is just a reflection of society's common standardization. Now modes of expression are tattoos, hair color, and high kicks. Well, I think it's really psychological what Dana White does with the UFC, and well, he's not really the head honcho at the UFC anymore as I understand it, but he designed it to be that way because it's psychological. It imbues in the minds of the viewers that the brand UFC is bigger than the fighters. It instills that in the mind. And it also instills it in the minds of the fighters themselves. You're not bigger than the company. It's kind of, I think it's like a manifestation of Dana White's narcissism. And it's a manifestation of the contempt that he has for the fighters. He's literally like some type of Roman emperor throwing gladiators in the arena, you know? That's the position that he likes to have in UFC. WizKid says, I think Zuffa are underestimating British boxing fans' loyalty to Matchroom in Queensbury. Okay, that's an interesting take. Ocean Blue says they're the CCP of boxing. Worse than that, they're like the damn Bolsheviks of boxing. Shout out to President Brush. He says, I think the optics of the Saudi-funded Zuffa doing the British promoters bad may backfire on them from a PR point of view. We're in a very nationalistic era. That's a good point. That is a good point. But that's why they've brought Dana White in to be the face. We know that the Saudis are the ones behind Zuffa, but the wider public in Britain may not realize that when Zuffa start doing events, they're just going to see Dana White. And Dana White, I mean, I'm not sure how he's perceived by the majority of people in Britain. I'm sure a lot of people like him, but I don't know. I'm not sure how he's perceived. But he's been brought in as the face. But very interesting comment there by President Brush. Shout out to Clement for the super chat. He says, Turkey is not rich. He is doing what MBS tells him. Probably Trump phoned MBS and told him to start working with Dana, which is Trump's friend. Turkey doesn't have the power people like to think. Yeah, but that's... Well, Turkey is rich because he bought Ring Magazine out of his own money. It wasn't one of the Saudi front organizations or the investment fund. Turkey literally bought Ring Magazine himself. It wasn't like Seller or any of these. No, Turkey bought that himself. So he is rich. I don't know how rich he is or what his personal wealth is. I've got no idea. But I understand the point you're making. He has access to the investment, is it called the Saudi Investment Fund, whatever it is, which is the Saudi government coffers. But it doesn't really matter whether it's Turkey or whether it's the Saudi government, because he's still doing what he's doing. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't really matter where the orders are coming from necessarily. It's just convenient to say Turkey this, Turkey that, rather than saying the Saudi government this, the Saudi. It's just convenient to say Turkey. He's their representative, basically. So he does their will, and therefore he's representative of their will. So it's just a convenient thing to just say Turkey. Shout out to Glum Coyote for the super chat. He says, yeah, but their biggest cherished star arguably is Sean O'Malley, who is a living rainbow. Sean O'Malley is a living rainbow? I need to look this up. Okay, well, I see what you mean by living rainbow, but do you mean like rainbow? Or he's just colorful like Tekashi 6ix9ine? Is he the UFC's biggest star? I've got no idea. Let me know in the live chat. Shout out to Glum Coyote for the super chat. Big up the sweet maths. He says, did Barry Hearn buy up a load of snooker halls, creating most of his wealth because he had foreknowledge due to his religion that snooker would be televised in the UK? That's not something that I've heard before, but nothing would surprise me. Due to his religion and all that. I don't know. I'm assuming that's something you've heard, the sweet maths, in order to ask that question. Big up Charles B for the super chat. Much appreciated, my bro. No comment on that one, just a super chat. Big up Charles B. If you want to follow up with a comment, I'll happily read it. WPW says Turkey is a billionaire. I googled him before. He came from a powerful family. Yeah, he's rich. He's not he's not like a random guy. He's rich. He out of his own money, as I understand it, bought Ring Magazine. Clement says, what I'm saying is that in Saudi, everyone's doing what the leader tells them, and knowing Trump, I have the feeling that he probably phoned MBS and told him to invest in US promoters. Okay. I don't see any compelling reason to believe that, but I guess it's possible. I don't really see any compelling reason to believe it. Because, yeah, okay, Dana's got a relationship with Trump, and Trump and MBS are cool with each other, so, it's possible. Oh, okay. The Cleto Reyes gloves. Cleto Reyes are a really strange company, all right? It's a Mexican company that have been making boxing gloves for many, many, many decades. Charles B says Trump's not that dialed in when it comes to sports. He looked lost at the FIFA World Cup ceremony. That was quite funny, actually. When Trump was giving out the medals and all that, I did laugh. But the Cleto Reyes gloves, they're a very strange company because they're stuck in their ways. They're such a name brand, and they provided fight gloves in particular for so many classic matches back in the days, and particularly in decades like the 80s and 90s, that they developed an arrogance about them where they acted as though their products were perfect and didn't need to be updated, changed, improved. And where I'm going with this is, of all the most recognizable boxing brands, Cleto Reyes, for most of my life, have made the most uncomfortable gloves out there. Not ergonomic at all, weird thumb placement, just very weird feeling gloves on the hand. The good part about Cleto Reyes gloves is that they are made from extremely high quality materials. All right, the leather they use is extremely thick and high quality. The stitching is very high quality, so on and so forth. All right, so they will last a very long time. They're built like tanks, right? But the ergonomics of Cleto Reyes gloves, I don't know if they've changed recently. I'm not sure, but for most of my life, up until at least as recently as maybe 10 years ago, maybe more recently than that, 7, 8 years ago, the ergonomics of Cleto Reyes gloves are horrible. Absolutely horrible. They feel butters on your hands. But because of the name, people would buy them and persevere with them and break them in to the point where the leather molds to your hand, even though the original shape of the glove is really awkward. But I was like, to hell with all that. F that for a game of soldiers. Just buy a pair of gloves that are ergonomic to begin with. But maybe they've innovated, maybe they've changed the design of the gloves a little bit in recent times. But for so many years, they were hanging on to the old designs, which were not ergonomic at all. The thumb position in particular was just so weird. Do I take protein powder or creatine? No, I don't. I don't take anything like that. Weird in that the thumb is flared out and not tucked into the glove. So when you're punching a pair of Cleto Reyes sparring or training gloves, it's like your thumb is way out there and they're just not ergonomically designed. It's just horrible. But again, maybe they've updated now, but for the longest time, for many, many, many years, up until at least 6, 7 years ago, they were like that. Horrible. No, I've never tried no boxing, no life gloves. You know, generally, Mexican glove brands are not great for heavyweights because most traditional Mexican sparring gloves, they use latex foam and not a particularly thick layer of latex foam, just a single piece of latex foam. Most sparring gloves these days use multiple layers of foam, different types of foams in one glove. That's the technology that a lot of them use now. Whereas the traditional Mexican brands will just use latex foam. The latex foam is very soft. And the thickness of the foam in most Mexican gloves is not particularly thick. So for heavyweights, you know, nah. You can't be having heavyweights wearing those in the gym unless you want to see people get knocked out every single spar. So for heavyweights, they're not really practical. But for lighter guys, maybe. The box says, I sprained my thumb badly in Reyes gloves and couldn't punch anything for like 12 weeks. Yeah, I'm not surprised the way they're designed. I'm not surprised. Shout out to Glum Coyote. He says, UFC needs to be instantly recognized as you're surfing through YouTube. And it has to be a sobriety you may fancy over the extravaganza of boxing pomp. When you say UFC, did you mean to say Zuffa? Yeah, boxing is extravagant and individualistic. You know, it's very bold and all that kind of stuff. And Zuffa, following the UFC model, is much more subdued, homogenized, uniform. How will they stand out? I mean, I guess they're hoping the fighters will make them stand out rather than the branding. They're hoping that the fighters, the stars, will draw people in, and over time, people will get used to and accustomed to the branding. The homogenized visuals and what have you. Malmu says, Usyk's been seeing everyone getting 50 mil to fight these MMA bums and couldn't help himself. Malmu says Sting gloves are very good. I hate Sting gloves. Personally, I don't like them. But if you like them, that's fine. You know, to each his own. In terms of ergonomics, Rival are great when it comes to ergonomics. They're not the greatest brand when it comes to build quality of their gloves. But with the ergonomics, I'm not saying they're the worst build quality either, but they're not among the elite In fact, even some mid-tier glove brands have better build quality than rival. Like Phenom, for example. They started out as kind of like a rival clone brand, but they've developed a more individual. They've developed more individual designs and stuff like that now. It's a UK-based company, Phenom, and their gloves are very, very well constructed. You know, good materials and good stitching and good build quality. So if you're looking for like a mid-tier glove, less than £200 or whatever, I've owned a couple of pairs of Phenoms. They're good gloves. I can recommend Phenom. They make good stuff. Their ergonomics are pretty good. Adidas used to do some pretty ergonomic gloves. Some nice fitting, nice feeling gloves on the hand. Adidas. Everlast, I like some of their fight gloves, but their sparring gloves for some reason are usually trash. I don't know what that's all about. They'll make good fight gloves, but then trash sparring gloves. So I don't know what's going on with them. I've never tried Paffin Sports, so I wouldn't know. Yeah, Usyk at this point looks like he's just on a victory lap, right? He doesn't look like he's serious now. He's fighting some kickboxer. He's just on a victory lap, looking to milk his position until he calls it a day. Yeah, I noticed that, Sizzler. Yeah. Hearn's got like a partial Chelsea smile in the latest interview. Maybe he's always had that and it's just a trick of the light. I'm not sure. Maybe it was just the lighting in that particular interview, but it did catch my eye. I did notice it and I thought it looked strange. Oh wow, I didn't realize that. Encircled says Rico isn't even a puncher in his own sport. He has a 30% KO rate. I did not know that. Malmu says apparently the rumor is Matchroom getting bought out for 1.5 billion. Has anyone heard that? I haven't heard that, no. Ricky Torres, big up for the super chat. It says Deontay to Simon, you got white privilege. You really can't take it. Anything Wilder says seriously. He's an idiot. He's always been an idiot. So you take everything Wilder says with a grain of salt because he's a very emotional man with a low level of intelligence. So does anyone take Wilder seriously anymore? Even the LDBC guys, do they still take him seriously? Have they distanced themselves from him after he got chinned a few times? I don't know. Well, of course he's bitter, yeah. Of course he's bitter. Yeah, that's a scary thought. Ganzoy says, can you imagine a Wilder interview in 30 years when CTE and old age have properly kicked in? That's a scary thought. Because he's not getting any brighter, is he, with age and CTE? Dear, oh dear, oh dear. That'll be Twilight Zone stuff. That'll be like Mitch Green territory. Glom Coyote says, I suspect if Opetaya becomes a star, this is a guy with a lot of riveting personality, but very charisma. Dana could make a star out of him easily if Jai lends himself. Yeah, I think so. I think that Dana knows exactly what to do with Opetaya because he's worked with Pacific Islanders in UFC before. He knows how to market them. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that Dana will know exactly how to market Jai Opetaya. I think he gets the crowd, he gets the mentality, he gets the warrior culture they have. I think he totally gets it. Circle says the Patars and Flomos are making a comeback. Are they? Really? Do they still exist? Because that was the least exciting news that I've heard in boxing for a very long time. I said this before. My excitement levels actually went below baseline when I saw the announcement for Mayweather Pacquiao 2. Like, I woke up a morning fresh out of bed, whatever my excitement level was, just waking up in the morning, not knowing what the news was. As soon as I read the news, my excitement levels went down. They went into the negative after hearing about that fight. Rubbish. Well, yeah, that's what I mean encircled. When I heard the news of the rematch, I was like, as if I'd taken a depressant. Rubbish. WizKid says Malik Scott was laughing at Wilder on Max Kellerman's ring show when the hosts were clowning him. Malik Scott was very devious when he coached Wilder, told him everything he wanted to hear. Yeah, he was the ultimate yes man. Yes man for the bag. And the things that Malik Scott used to say about Wilder was an insight into Deontay Wilder's mind, right? Because Malik Scott came out and said that Deontay Wilder is the most dynamic heavyweight in history and has better boxing skills than Muhammad Ali. He said that. I ain't making it up. Malik Scott said that Deontay Wilder had better boxing skills than Muhammad Ali and was the most dynamic fighter in the world. That gives you an insight into Deontay Wilder's mindset. When he's got man in his team saying stuff like that. Unbelievable. Anything for the bag. Yeah. Malik Scott knew exactly what he had to do. He knew exactly the kind of character Wilder was, and therefore exactly what he wanted to hear. The box says, are you more interested in Mayweather Pacquiao 2 or Usyk Rico? I'm more interested in Partridge versus Makhmudov. How about that? Because those two other fights are equally diabolical. I'm not expecting Partridge Makhmudov to be amazing, but it's an acceptable fight for a guy coming off an 18-month layoff at the age of 37. and 2 defeats. So I'm more looking forward to Partridge Makhmadov than those 2 fights. Yeah, Malik Scott and Kate Abdo is one of the weirdest on-screen marriages ever. It's so weird. It's weird because Malik Scott is a weird guy, and Kate Abdo comes across as relatively normal. And she's with this just very, very odd man. It's so strange. Like, plenty of women in the boxing industry have dated boxers, ex-boxers, but they normally go for like the champions and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Not some random fringe contender. It's just very strange. Random fringe contender who's a eccentric to say the least. Tattoos all over his head, and he used to have this kind of chubby white girlfriend years ago that he ran an Instagram account with, and I think they were doing like OnlyFans content and all that kind of stuff. Malik Scott and that chubby white girl that he used to be with. And that's the guy that Kate Abdo marries? I don't know, man. Look, that's their business, but it's weird. Very, very weird. Ben Odom says he was a trainer initially. Okay. Big up Liam Goff. G-Man in the chat. Yep, very disappointed with Usyk. Ben Odom says, remember she's a divorcee, options are limited. Yeah, they might be limited, but they're not that limited. This is one of them rare occasions where I'm questioning the woman's decision more than the man's decision. I question his decision too, but her decision is just so strange. I don't know why she would marry that guy. It's so strange. Ocean Blue says, he went from someone who needed Weight Watchers to someone who needs a Happy Meal. That's another thing about it, yeah. Very rarely do you get guys who go from, you know, chubby chicks to rail thin waifs. Like, guys who like fat women don't also like extremely skinny women. Unless the guy's some type of out of control nympho who will just smash anything that walks. Big up Saim Hussein. Ben Oldham says, ask Dylan White's former trainer Zab about her. Oh dear. Are you talking about Xavier Miller? Glom Coyote says, really, YouTube is putting spaces into my words randomly, and AI corrects me, and we end up having a horrendous mismatch. A horrendous mismatch like Usyk versus this kickboxer. A horrendous mismatch like Conor Benn versus the Rougarou. That's what he calls himself. Regis Prograde. Do any of you guys know what the Rougarou is? I know what it is. Seeing if anyone knows anything about Louisiana. Don't Google it. I want to know if anyone knew already what the Rougarou is. WPW says it's known she's been about. She's been about a bit. Anyone know who I'm impersonating? I've been about a bit. I've lived and I've seen. I've been about a bit. I don't read Daily Mirror, son. I go and have a look. The Shark Puncher. There you go. Solid Snake Nose. The Shark Puncher. I'm the only man in the history of mankind to have swum across the Straits of Johor. Yeah, swam it. There you go, Paul Sykes. Swam it. The locals don't go paddling like. Sharks. Not shark infested, but yeah, the locals don't go paddling. Yeah, it's a wolf thing. That's right. The Rougarou is a wolfman type creature in Louisiana folklore. Yes, the Rougarou. Did I see about Fury and Khan's former manager Asif? No, what happened? Yeah, Paul Sykes. I know how job works. I know about sharks. I know about sharks. Give him a clip round ear roll. Give him a clip round ear roll. I know how job. Got to let him know how job works. Glom Coyote says, can't it be that Britain's cult for eccentricity stems mainly from the counterculture of the 60s and not as deeply rooted as you think? No, I think it's just the psychology of an island nation. Yeah, I think that's what it is. the psychology of island nations is a bit different to mainland nations. Since Britain's an island nation, if you go back through British history, they've always done things a bit differently to the rest of the continent, the rest of the European continent. They've always done things a little bit differently. Again, for example, like Britain's refusal to adopt the metric system. Britain still uses a very antiquated weights and measures system. So in Britain, people weigh themselves in stones, pounds, and ounces. All right? Which is obviously very, very antiquated. But they hang on to it. They're not interested in going to the metric system because they're very proud of their unique identity, which is different to the continental Europeans. Same says that's changing now, to be honest. I think it's changing because of immigration, to be fair. Because a lot of people who are not white in the UK, they don't weigh themselves in pounds. I've noticed that. They don't weigh themselves in stone. I've noticed that. They started weighing themselves in kilos. But white Brits still predominantly weigh themselves in stone and pounds and ounces. Big up Ricky Torres for the super chat. He says, Deontay has beautiful women. Okay, one got him 30 million. But he's in the plantation suffering, Hat. Remember. It's my people suffering till this day. Yeah, with Deontay, because he's so low on intelligence, he makes foolish decisions even in his personal life. He was accused by his own brother of sleeping with his brother's woman. I mean, that's crazy. When he got with that Telly Swift individual, she already had a child by another guy. If you're a multi-millionaire, you're 6'7", you're chiseled. At the time, he would have been in his 20s or early 30s. Why would you get a baby mama? Why would you get a woman who has another man's child? Like, you've literally got the pick of all the women out there that don't have baggage like that. So why the hell would you... Deontay is just foolish. Glum Coyote says, yeah, I understand that, but for instance, we voted against Europe and the Constitution and have to swallow it nonetheless. But as I say, with Britain, it's not just stuff like that. It's many things. Again, the metric system, the currency, and many, many other things. Britain just likes to do things a bit differently to the continent. Even when they were still in the European Union, the European Union tried to impose the metric system on Britain, and British people were like, nah, we're not doing the metric system. Light cheese or mangoes? Definitely mangoes. WPW says, yeah, but remember he had 3 baby moms before he met her. What's that got to do with anything? Just because he's got baby moms, he's not supposed to get someone that also has a child. You just introduce extra complications. Like as a man, even if you got baby moms, the next person you're with, if you're a rich man with money and you're 6'7" and you're chiseled, you're not supposed to go and get someone else's baby mom. You're supposed to get someone with a blank slate. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you get someone with a blank slate in this position? It don't make any sense. The name Hatman comes from owning a lot of hats. Even now I own a lot of hats. It's as simple and unmysterious as that. Yep, just own a lot of hats. Not as many as I used to own, but I still own quite a lot. Oh, wow. Imon is in Nairobi, Kenya. Okay. You got the Kenyan crew. Off to bed. Big up. Sizzler says there's not that many blank slates out there. The world is a big place. I'm not a multimillionaire. Here I am in Africa. There's loads of blank slates. Deontay Wilder's visited Africa before, you know? It's not hard. When you're a man with means, resources, all that kind of stuff, it's not hard to find blank slates. It's a big world. But Wilder is just stupid. That's it. He's just an idiot. Yes, I'm in Africa. I've been in Africa since September last year. I left Costa Rica. Now I'm living in Africa. Black Dynamite says, I heard speaking Russian in Kenya is key. Shots fired. Yeah, I shudder to think what Deontay Wilder's version of proof actually is. Because he's so foolish. What he thinks is proof is obviously, or presumably, nothing of the sort. He's a country bumpkin, he's a simpleton. He's lucky he can fight. Hatman is trying to escape the law. Why would I be trying to escape the law? I'm not a criminal. Benjamin says, isn't it harder for someone famous to find love without attracting women seeking a sponsor? Most women are seeking a sponsor, whether you're famous or not. That's the day and time we live in. Hypergamy is real. Most women are seeking a sponsor. It's just that there are levels to hypergamy. Some women want to do nothing and have you sponsor a luxury lifestyle, whereas other women aren't that bold. They'll settle for, something more reasonable and fair. Katie versus the world says, what are Zambian women like personality-wise? They are very approachable, very receptive, friendly. Most of them are like that. Now, you do get some, stank ones, usually that work in a shop somewhere doing something. But they're a minority. Most of them are very nice, very approachable, etc. Do you guys like the flight footage? No, I haven't taken any nature trips. I haven't taken any nature trips. I'm not really the safari type. I like to leave them wild animals alone. I don't like the idea of them safari jeeps that are open-sided and all that. Like, why are you dicing with danger? Rusby says, should go see some lions, just go in one with the doors closed. Ocean Blue says, I don't like safaris or zoos personally. Tony Yes says, I like Rico. His stance is more suited to crossing over to boxing than most kickboxers. Flying high in the friendly sky. What do I think of Zuffa so far? I like Zuffa's last two shows. I think the fights were entertaining, well matched from an entertainment perspective, most of them. But this upcoming show, Partridge Makhmudov topping the bill. But to be fair, what I've heard now is that Zuffa are running the logistics for the Fury Makhmudov show. So it's not really going to be a Zuffa show with the Zuffa branding and the Zuffa format and all that kind of stuff. As I understand it, I stand to be corrected, but as I understand it, they're just going to run the logistics the same way that Matchroom run the logistics for Ring Magazine shows. In fact, this is going to be a Ring Magazine show, according to Hearn. So, but it'll be Zuffa running this Ring Magazine show rather than Matchroom running it. Now, no fishing trips yet, Charles B. Since I live in a landlocked country, there is a river, obviously. And there are lakes and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not really a coarse fishing guy. I like sea fishing, and there's no sea fishing here. But there are some fish which are good eating fish and also game fish, such as, for example, the tiger fish. That's a fish which this part of Africa is famous for. Not sure if you've ever seen an African tiger fish, but they're pretty ferocious looking creatures, especially the Goliath tiger fish. They look mad. KD versus the world. It will all depend on the visa situation, because the visa situation here is not as smooth as one would hope. Let's just put it that way. It's not as smooth as one would hope. There are other countries in Africa where it's much, much easier to stay long term and much cheaper as well. I don't mean cheaper in terms of the cost of living. I'm talking about cheaper in terms of the visas. Here, the visas are very expensive for some bizarre reason. I don't know why they're like that. Everything else in the country is cheap, but the visas, yeah, very expensive. Remember, I'm coming from Costa Rica where the visas are free. A tourist visa is free. It lasts for 6 months. And it's perpetual. So you just leave the country for a couple hours, you come back, and they give you another 6 months. So that's where I'm coming from. It was like, yeah, I knew people in Costa Rica that were living there for like 15 years on a tourist visa. 15 years! Just doing a visa run every 3 months, because they extended it to 6 months while I was living there. But for the longest time, it was 3 months. So I knew people who have been living there 15 years doing a visa run every 3 months. So in some countries, it's nice and easy like that. Whereas in other countries, for whatever reason, they make it real difficult. Yeah, Costa Rica make their money through tourism. So they allow tourists from mainly America and Canada, but also Europe, to stay there indefinitely, really. Yeah, I used to watch River Monsters as well, Charles B. Why did I leave Costa Rica? Well, it was only ever a stopgap. I never intended to stay there permanently. It's only ever a stopgap. I always intended to come to Africa. I actually stayed in Costa Rica longer than I anticipated, or longer than I planned to. I was always planning to come to Africa. Glum Coyote says, I'd like to live in the north of the UK one day. Do you think the cultural shock will be awful to deal with? Any tips? No, I don't think the cultural shock. In fact, I think as a Parisian, you might get on better with northerners in the UK rather than southerners. Because French people generally are quite blunt. They're quite, like a lot of people from the south of England regard French people as rude. Because French people can be quite blunt and they speak their mind and stuff like that. They're not particularly known for being polite. In the south of England, there's a lot more pretense, People are more pretentious. In the north, people are less pretentious, say what they mean more. I'm generalizing here, but that's how it tends to be. So you might actually prefer the northerners, and you might get on well with them. They're not as sophisticated as you Parisians, though, so you do have to bear that in mind, right? Northerners in the UK are, they're not known for sophistication. I'll just leave it at that. They're not known for sophisticated food, sophisticated way of talking or ways. But it will make you laugh. Green says, locked in from Angola, left UK 4 years ago. Will you move back to the UK? I always get this question. I have no intention of ever in my life moving back to the UK, ever. I don't know why I always get that question, but no, I have no intention of ever moving back there. Encircled says, I think a French person would find the food in the north terrifying. Now, I'm going to give you a comparison right now. Yeah? There's a French sandwich chain in the UK called Pret. That's me in an English accent pronouncing it. Is it called Prix? Is it Prix de Manger? I'm not sure how to pronounce it in French. Pret is the French chain that does sandwiches and whatever, right? The northern UK equivalent would be Greggs. Compare the produce from Pret to Greggs. That's the difference between French food and northern UK food. Yo, it's night and day. And don't get it twisted. Greggs is alright. In fact, the Greggs sausage roll is legendary. But I'm not going to put it on the same level as Pret. I love Pret. Yeah. Pret food and their baguettes and everything, banging. That's a whole fact. Charles B says chip butties and tins of dandelion and burdock. Percy Ingalls. What, are they no longer going? Percy Ingalls? And Circle says Greg's is like fine dining compared to some of the stuff up north. Greg's is from up north though, right? Where did Greg's start? Was it like in the northeast? I like McDonald's. McDonald's is horrible. McDonald's is not even food. Newcastle. Yeah, I thought it started in the northeast somewhere. Yeah. That's a northern thing. Ocean Blue says, imagine a Frenchman having a battered Mars bar. Yeah, it would be pretty horrifying for a Frenchman to see some of the food up north. I'm saying in terms of like chain stores, Pret is the best sandwich chain store in the UK. And obviously it's French. You can't tell me their baguettes in Pret are not banging. You know the chicken Caesar one? Bro, that's banging. Levels. I don't care if there's a bunch of yuppies in there. The food is banging. The baguettes are banging. Activist Intellect says, I think Pret is mid, bro. I totally disagree. Pret is levels. Maybe you're getting their sandwiches rather than their baguettes. I don't know. But the baguettes are levels. If I tried the tuna cucumber one, I'm not sure. I might have done. I've eaten a lot of stuff out of Pret. There you go. Big up Solomon. He's a Pret man as well. How you mean? Yes. Solomon knows. He's a Pret man. Ocean Blue says, stick some salt and vinegar crisps in that Caesar baguette. Now you guys are buzzing. I think there's some biased patriotism going on here. Upper crust is better than Pret. Give it a rest. Give it a rest. Upper crust is not better than Pret. Come on. Ali says, Pret is class, they sprinkle crack in the tuna and cucumber baguette. Upper crust. Upper crust is like a poor imitation of Pret. Stop it. Charles B says crisp sarnie is top tier. That's a whole fact. Blum Coyote says, I mean, according to you, subjectively, is there a boxer coming from the north that sums it up? Is there a boxer something coming from the north that sums up the north? I don't want to say Fury. Although some people might say Fury. Scott Quigg. I mean, yeah, Scott Quigg. Dave Allen. Yeah, Dave Allen. Dave Allen pretty much sums up the North quite well. Ricky Hatton. Yeah, Ricky Hatton, Dave Allen, Scott Quigg. Yeah, they kind of sum up the North. The North is no frills. Yeah. Excuse me, Partridge. I said Fury. Should have said Partridge. Yeah, the Scott Quigg walkout. Big up James Clifford. That Scott Quigg walkout was so northern and it was so cringe. It was so cringe. But Dave Allen is very, very northern. Yeah, he's a very typical kind of northern character. Very down to earth, no frills, no pretense at all. Yeah, as Ocean Blue said, Kell Brook was the Soho end of the North. Kell Brook is Brighton up north. Can I give you another person who sums up the North? Some of you lot may not remember who this is. Jane Couch. Yo, Jane Couch sums up the North. Shots fired. Jane Couch sums up the North. Yo. Johnny Vegas, yeah. Peter Kay, Johnny Vegas. Solid Snake says Scott Quigg looked like he was popping into Tesco for a loaf of bread in that ring walk. And you know what? Jane Couch might have been the first person in the UK to actually start interviewing people on YouTube. Am I wrong? I swear she might have been the first. She was before Kugan Cassius in IFL. Jane Couch might have been the first one, you know. The first UK boxing interviewer on YouTube. She might have been the first one. Royal Rumble UK, North versus Midland Southerners. Northern, let's be real, the North would win. Let's just cut to the chase. The North would definitely win. So Paolo the Geek says, yeah, Jane was the original, but she's a private person and decided she didn't want the hassle. Yeah, because she was doing it years and years ago, way before Kugan. Way before Kugan. James Clifford said, yeah, Jane gave it a go on YouTube and unfortunately suffered a nervous breakdown. Damn, is that what happened? Ocean Blue says, though, the South have got Napper and Baby Ting. The North has got Big Bad John Fury. 109 Yard Road. Who have the Midlands got? Richie Woodall? Purple Aki's RIP now, and he's passed away. They don't have Purple Aki anymore up north. Well, Tyrone Booth is from the Midlands. He's from Nottingham. Nottingham's classed as the Midlands, right? Oh, okay, the Midlands got Rob McCracken. Encircled says, which fighter sums up Birmingham the best? I'm going to say Richie Woodall, although he's not from Birmingham, he's from Telford, but to anyone outside of Birmingham, it's all the same, isn't it? Telford, Wolverhampton, West Bromwich, it's all Birmingham. We don't differentiate. It's all Birmingham to us. So I'm going to say Richie Woodall. And East Midlanders hate that when people from London say that Wolves and West Brom and Telford, it's all Birmingham. They hate when you do that. They get triggered. See, Black Country separate. Don't put us in with those lot. The accent's different, is it? Chili Beef says Nottingham is Midlands. I'm born and bred in Nottingham. Yeah, it's Midlands. As I thought. It's just that people get thrown off because it doesn't have a Midlands, quote-unquote Midlands accent. Like West Midlands accent is very distinctive, whereas the Nottingham accent is more like a Northern accent. East Midlands, there you go. Nottingham's in the East Midlands. And Circle says it's all too depressing to differentiate. Chili Beef says Harold Graham is Sheffield. Yes, the Cobra and Lee Wood are Nottingham. Yeah, Tyrone Booth is from Nottingham, but he trained at the Ingle Gym for a long time. I think that's why people got it confused and thought he was from Sheffield. Maybe he still lives in Sheffield now, I don't know, but he's from Nottingham. He has a Nottingham accent, he doesn't have a Sheffield accent. A Sheffield accent is like Johnny Nelson. Tyrone Booth doesn't have that kind of accent. Okay, I'm going to have to put a pause on Paolo the Greek's comment there. Pause on that Johnny Nelson comment. Paolo the Geek. No, it's a random one, isn't it? Don't know where Paolo's going with that one. Have I followed the Tupac Biggie case? Rumors about killer cops and stuff. I don't care about the Tupac and Biggie case, bro. That's like decades old, and yeah, I've heard all the rumors over the years, and now they're going after Keefy D, and I don't care about that, bro. Pair of dead rappers from the 90s. I don't care. This is weird. I don't know. I don't know where Paulo's going with this. This is weird. Indeed, JR. So, what does the villa in Aston Villa mean? Aston is a part of Birmingham, right? It's an area. But what does villa mean? Can anyone explain to me what villa means? I know what a villa is, as in a villa you would live in, but is that what the villa in Aston Villa means? Like a villa, like a holiday home villa? Yeah, but I know it's a nickname, but where does it come from? What's the etymology? What's villa? Okay, you're saying there's a Villa Road down Aston Way. Ah, all right. Villa Park. Okay. So why a Sheffield Wednesday called Sheffield Wednesday? Does anyone know the answer to that one? Why Sheffield Wednesday? You got first round boxing. Yeah, I know the Aston part. I just was wondering about the Villa part. Oh, you're saying the house was referred to as a villa. Is that it? The Gregorian house? Says because they only played on Wednesdays. Is that actually true? That club only played on Wednesdays, and so they were called Sheffield Wednesday. How random is that? No, but Arsenal makes sense. Because it was some like munitions factory, wasn't it? They were basically named after that. And it's a good name actually for a football team, Arsenal. Oh, okay. It's named after a house that used to be in Lascelles. Okay, so here's the actual answer. First round boxing says Sheffield Wednesday are named after the Wednesday Cricket Club, formed in 1820, which was established by local tradesmen who had Wednesday afternoons off work. Interesting. I always found the name West Bromwich Albion an interesting one as well, because Albion was one of the ancient names for Britain. It was Albion. I'm trying to think of some other weird football team names. Most of them are pretty straightforward. Chelsea, Tottenham. Okay, Hotspurs is a bit odd, but whatever. Man City, Man United. West Ham, that's an area in London. There's a good one. Accrington Stanley. Where does the Stanley come from? Accrington is obviously a town, but Stanley, what does that mean? Who remembers that advert back in the days? I can't even remember what it was an advert for. But I just remember Accrington Stanley. Who are they? What was that advert when they said that? That must be back in the late 80s or 90s. What advert was that for when they said, Accrington Stanley, who are they? Exactly. I just remember, I don't even remember what the advert looked like. I just remember that line. Accrington Stanley, who are they? Exactly. Warner Park says it was an advert for milk. Well, Nottingham Forest is a good one. What else would you call a football team from Nottingham other than Nottingham Forest? The famous Nottingham Forest of Robin Hood fame. Yeah. Why isn't there a club in London called Thames United? That seems like an obvious one. Thames Rangers or something. I don't know. Oh yeah, I remember MK Dons. Wimbledon didn't have a stadium of their own for a while, did they? I swear it was Wimbledon. Sizzler says, but Thames isn't an area, it's a river. Does it have to be an area? Because Albion is not an area, is it? Yes, West Bromwich is. But there are teams named after things that are not areas. Like Nottingham Forest, they're named after a forest. I just said, Nottingham Forest is named after a forest. WPW says they used to play at Crystal Palace. Was I ever much of a baller? No, I was terrible at football. I was terrible at football. I was pretty good at rugby, but football, I was terrible. Chili Beef says Notts County are known as Magpies, as Nottingham is full of them. There you go, there's a team named after an entire county. Oh, Notts County. Yeah, Everton is an area in Liverpool. Chili Beef says, when I wear a Forest shirt in the gym in Berlin where I live, they always talk to me about the Forest in Nottingham. You remember the carton milk in school back in the days? They used to have different pictures on. I remember they went through one phase where they had dinosaurs on the milk cartons. Spoke about this in a previous stream. 80s primary school in the UK. Apple crumble and custard. Ravioli. Watered down strawberry milkshake in those metal jugs. Yeah, Queen's Park Rangers. I went to school in Brixton. Big up the vinyl collector. It's just a general hangout, really. Talking about whatever you guys want to talk about. Yep, Jam Roly Poly. I think I started watching the film Begonia, but I didn't continue with it somehow. My primary wasn't particularly rough. My secondary was very rough. Yes. Secondary was very rough. But primary school was all right. Big up Glum Coyote. He says, Eddie admits himself he is insolently arrogant. In spite of that, he's granting Turkey every wish in the most self-inflicting way possible. That's an interesting comment, because I guess you're saying an arrogant person wouldn't bow down and kiss the ring to the extent that Eddie Hearn is. But there are some people whose dignity and pride supersedes their love of money. Eddie Hearn is not one of those people. So as much as he might be egotistical and prideful, his love of money is much greater than that. So, yeah, Eddie Hearn's love of money is insatiable. Whereas Frank Warren's the kind of guy, even though he loves money, his ego and pride supersede that. Trolls Are Bad says, did you find it easy to stay out of trouble in Brixton then? I was always in trouble. Never mind staying out of it, I was always in it. Fernie G says, currently watching all seasons of The X-Files on your recommendation, Hatman, midway through season 1 right now. Yeah, season 1 gets better as it goes along. Season 2, not the strongest season, but still cool. Season 3, 4, and 5, that's when it really hits its full swing. I want to say season 3 and 4 are probably the best. Maybe season 4. But season 1 is also good. There's some good episodes in season 1. Tombs is a classic episode. One of the episodes I like in season 1 is called Space. Always found that to be really fascinating episode. Yeah, Frank Warren isn't a boxer, obviously, but he's as ferocious when it comes to litigation as any boxer is that I've ever seen in the ring. Frank Warren, when he wants to make a point through the lawyers, you're in for a serious fight. Because that man is ferocious when it comes to litigating. He has gone after so many people with a passion. That's his version of actually having a fight. You know, that's his version of punching somebody in the face, since he's not a boxer himself. But he is a fiery character. I mean, he got himself punched in the face by Mike Tyson. And he was promoting Mike Tyson. How many promoters have been punched in the face? In fact, there's only 2 promoters that I'm aware of that have actually been punched by Mike Tyson. One is Don King, and the other is Frank Warren. Don King apparently got stomped out by Mike Tyson, not just punched, but stomped. Yeah, he also got shot, of course. That's right. All right, peeps, I'm going to draw the curtain on this stream. You know the routine. I like to shout everybody out who joined the conversation, with a special shout out to those who donated via Super Chat. They were Adam Folks, Anthony, Gaz, Luca, Chili Beef, Glum Coyote, Daniel, Tommy Gov, Action Popcast, President Brush, Clement, The Sweet Maths, Charles B, Ricky Torres. Big up, big up, big up. Thank you. Much appreciated for contributing with the Super Chats. Till next time, you guys take care, be good. Catch you on the other side. I'm out.